Hey, I want to talk a bit about a controversial student. Excuse me, I'm a little bit pissed off actually, so I'm just sort of getting my composure. But I do want to talk about it whilst the story is raw in my mind. Um, I want to talk about a student called Ntokozo Qwabe. Now, this guy is a South African student, a black South African student, who is currently undertaking a Rhodes Scholarship at Oxford University. And he's sort of been a rather prominent figure because he has spearheaded the Rhodes Must Fall campaign, which has been going on for a few years. This campaign is basically um, designed to get the statue of Cecil Rhodes removed from Oxford University. I forget which college it is. There has been successful campaigns within South Africa itself to have the statue of Rhodes removed. Quick little bit of history. Cecil Rhodes was a British colonialist, very famous or infamous man, depending what way you look at him. Um, when it comes to the issue of colonialism in the British Empire, I see myself as objective. I'm not sort of blindly nationalistic and saying, rule Britannia, we're the best sort of thing. I'm very, very aware of the crimes and the immoral exploitation that we were very much involved in. And I have no problem whatsoever with anyone critiquing the British Empire, or any empire for that matter. And Cecil Rhodes, like any historical figure, should be scrutinised. That's all fine. This video isn't even about the rights and wrongs of removing the statue. There's a debate to be had with that. Personally, I'm not entirely convinced by it. Um, but anyway, that's the debate to be had. If a majority of students feel the statue should be removed, then maybe it should. I'm not so convinced by the argument because to me it's just like erasing history, just pretending that this man wasn't a real historical figure. Just because he's a controversial figure, does that mean, if that was really the case, then almost every statue everywhere would be removed because most prominent figures at some point in their life, or even a significant part of their life, made controversial decisions, done controversial things. So I fully understand, the emotion someone like Cecil Rhodes brings about. But anyway, the point is he spearheaded this campaign. Now, it's been reported today that a few weeks ago, when he was back in South Africa with some of his buddies, he went into a restaurant in, I believe it was in the Western Cape, and this has kind of wouldn't say viral, but it's become a widely reported story. Apparently, he left a message for the waitress saying, "We will give a tip when you give back the land your ancestors stole from us." Um, and he added, and I've just taken a picture. Like I say, I can't open two pages at once. But this is the message he then added to that. If you just bear with me a second. Um, Yeah, he later bragged on Facebook that he and a friend made the woman cry and called her, and quote, typical white tears, leaving him unable to stop smiling with something so black and so wonderful has just happened. He wrote, she sees the note and starts shaking. It is irrelevant whether you personally have land, wealth, or you don't. Go to your fellow white people and mobilize for them to give us the land back. Obviously, this guy comes from the Robert Mugabe school of thought. So I'm just going to weigh in on this and say a few things, a few of my thoughts as to what I think of this guy. Um, I don't care if you're a white liberal who's wrapped up by guilt or you're a black African nationalist. This guy's a prick, okay? He's nothing but a hypocrite, a bully, and a prick. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that to be the case, and I'm certainly not alone in this. Firstly, he is a hypocrite. He has taken a Rhodes Scholarship in the name of the man whose statue and memory he is trying to erase. Now, this is not the case of me speaking as a fan of Cecil Rhodes, which I'm not, but just pointing out that it is blatantly hypocritical. You cannot denounce and demonize someone and then take a scholarship in their name, which he is being paid to do. And he has come to the United Kingdom, he's come to one of the world's most prestigious universities. So let's just forget this idea that this guy is any sort of victim. He's not. He's clearly from a relatively privileged background if he could do that. And there's no comparison whatsoever between the life that he has and the life of a child in a Nairobi slum or a Johannesburg slum for that matter. So he is hypocritical. He is a bully because he has a smug sort of enjoyment in making a young woman cry. Her name was Ashley Schultz, and apparently she was a waitress. And she was trying to raise money for her mother who had cancer. Okay, so this asshole thinks that it is something to gloat about. Now, before anyone tries to give me a history of South Africa, I am very, very aware that in the apartheid era, people were treated terribly. I get that. And I understand that in the apartheid era, it would have been the other way around, where racist whites would have looked down on black waiters and so on. In fact, there would have been the segregation anyway, but I fully understand the history of that, so I don't need a history lesson. But this young woman's 24 years old, which means she was actually born after 1990. She was born after apartheid ended. So to bully her because of what the apartheid regime done is utterly outrageous. Um, but more to the point, it's a disgusting act of cowardice. That doesn't give him any moral high ground whatsoever. And anyone who thinks it does is frankly an idiot. Um, to be honest, that really pissed me off reading about that. The good news is it has been made public, and the tide is turning against him. With some luck, at some point he'll be kicked out of Oxford for being a complete prick and for being a bully. Um, I also think he's a racist. He's an out racist who just hates all white people. That's blatantly clear from what he's saying. He actually reminds me a bit of that guy. I think he's called Julius Malemba, the junior leader of the ANC, who was threatened with removal from his own party because of his extreme views. Um, to be quite honest, I really don't care what the Pan Africanist argument is on this, or the white liberal guilt argument. The guy is a prick. Full stop. He goes to one of the world's most prestigious universities, but he has actions of a petulant brat. There's nothing intelligent or noble about what he done. And as for standing up for his people, um, that's crazy. And the good news is that a lot of people have condemned him and seen him for what he is. And by the way, not just white people. I have seen British Muslims condemn him. I have seen black people condemn him. I've seen a wide range of people condemn this asshole. Um, Personally, I think he should be kicked off the program for being an obnoxious bully, quite possibly a misogynist as well. If bearing in mind that the waitress was a young woman, so he clearly thinks it's free game, to treat um, young women like this. I mean, the guy is a complete and utter asshole, and the worst thing about him is that he thinks he is the victim um, because he's black and because it's something that's beyond his control or anyone else's control. I have nothing but contempt for people who use the suffering of their ancestors as an excuse for their own attitude. That's essentially what he's doing. Um, like I say, I'm well aware of the history of South Africa. It was appalling. Okay, apartheid was an evil system. I understand that, and I have no problem with people debating the wrongs of colonialism. What I do have a big problem with is people using this victimhood mentality to basically treat other people like shit. This young woman was just doing her job. That's it. She can't help her skin color. And people like him hold Africa back. They don't advance Africa. And if he really, really, really cares about his people, then he should be devoting his energy to tackling corruption in Africa, to tackling a lot of the issues African governments face today. I am so sick and tired of colonialism constantly being used as an excuse. Oh, there's a problem. Let's blame the evil white men. That is what I hear, and I'm sick of it. And yeah, this isn't a politically correct video, but frankly, I don't really care. I hate bullies, and I hate people who use the suffering of their ancestors as an excuse. It's no better than radical feminists having a negative experience with one or two men and then hating all men as a result. This guy is looking at the history of South Africa and he's looking at the traditional history of racist white people. So he's deciding, oh, well, that makes it legitimate for me to hate all white people. The guy is a prick. And Nelson Mandela would probably agree with me if he was still here, because this is exactly what Nelson Mandela didn't want. Nelson Mandela, one of the greatest things he'd done as a leader, and one thing I feel which deserved a lot of respect, was deliberately unifying South Africa. When Nelson Mandela wore the Springboks top, yes, it was provocative to African nationalists, but I thought that was a very, very practical move because Mandela realized that to have a prosperous future, South Africa would need to unify and reconcile. It's not a case of burying the past, it's not a case of not talking about the wrongs of the past, but it is a case of not using the past as an excuse for everything. And that is what so many Pan Africanists do, and I'm so sick of it. And frankly, I do know some white people who have a mentality where they would denounce this video as racist because I'm calling out a racist bully. The point is, many black people have been condemning him as well, so they can see that he's an asshole. Um, Personally, I think that whoever deals with admissions at Oxford University should seriously look at this guy, given that he has a track record of bullying. I wouldn't be surprised if he bullies fellow students. He needs to be scrutinised and, if appropriate, kicked out. He doesn't deserve to be here. I mean, he is not using this scholarship for anything positive other than to sow hatred. I mean, if this was anybody else, they would immediately be kicked out. So fuck him. And fuck his hateful, divisive, bullying agenda. And if you support him, I don't care what you think of me. I really don't. Because everything I'm saying in this video is absolute fact.